Alright, well, I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about the worst movies of the year. Um, it's after Christmas. I don't know why I'm talking about such a killjoy subject after such a happy time of the year, but what can you do? This is the time I'm choosing to shoot the video. Now, like I said before, I'm going to introduce this video by naming a bunch of movies that I did not see, but nevertheless, if I had seen them, they probably would have been on here. So yeah, Grown Ups 2. I'm not watching any more of Adam Sandler's movies. I'm not. I mean, if Sandler and his cronies are not going to put any effort into their movies, if they're going to keep feeding you the same crap, why should I give them my hard-earned money? Why should I give them any of my time? I have not. That's My Boy was the last straw. I am not watching any more Adam Sandler movies. I cannot stand Adam Sandler. I cannot stand any movie that is put out by Happy Madison. Woe to you, American people who went and saw Grown Ups 2 instead of Pacific Rim. What does that even say about you? That domestically, Grown Ups 2 outgrossed Pacific Rim. I cannot understand the mindset for that. How do you go up, see two posters for movies, Pacific Rim, which is about giant robots versus giant aliens. It looks awesome. It's directed by Guillermo del Toro. And Grown Ups 2, which is something that is crapped out by Adam Sandler and the morally bankrupt idiots over at Happy Madison. I'm done. I'm done with Happy Madison movies. A Haunted House. This was basically the Wayans Brothers project, or the Marlon Wayans project at the beginning of the year. That's basically Scary Movie, and that's it. It's basically Scary Movie if the Wayans Brothers were the primary players involved. This is one of those things where I didn't even hear about it until the weekend it came out, and I was not gonna. And upon seeing the reviews and upon seeing some of the promotional material for it, I just didn't feel like going out that weekend to see it. I just did not have the urge. Same with Identity Thief and Inappropriate Comedy. These movies just looked way too stupid. Inappropriate Comedy, I don't even know what that is, but that seemed to have a lot in common with a movie that is going to end up on my worst of the year list. And Identity Thief, it just looked like more of Melissa McCarthy doing that same tired shtick of, oh, it's funny to see a chubby short woman act all tough and zany and whatnot. It's about, at this point, even before this point, it's about as old as that shtick that Ken Jeong does, where it's funny to see a short little Asian guy beating people up and acting all butch and crazy. I'm tired of Melissa McCarthy's shtick. She should go back to playing normal people. She should go back to playing characters akin to her character from Gilmore Girls. Because in there, she was normal. She was not as nearly as in your face as she is now. Another movie is Getaway. Again, when I saw this trailer, I was like, Ethan Hawke teaming up with Selena Gomez. No thanks. I mean, Ethan Hawke is not bad, but Selena Gomez, no thanks. Diana. Now this one, again, I actually didn't hear about it until it came out, and when I saw the reviews it was getting, there were some people who were calling this the worst biopic ever. Usually my curiosity is piqued, but upon hearing that it was very boring, I just dissuaded myself. I said, there are some movies that are so bad they are good, and there are some movies that are just so bad they are relentlessly boring. This is what I was hearing about Diana, which is a shame because I actually thought the casting of Naomi Watts as Princess Diana was actually a pretty good choice, and I would have liked to see her in a good version of that movie. Especially after she blew me away in The Impossible. But I digress. The 3 Tyler Perry movies that I know of that came out this year, Temptation, Peoples, and the Medea Christmas. These 3, along with the Seltzerberg movies that came out this year, the Scary Movie 5 and Starving Games, all 5 of these movies just looked way too stupid. The trailers that I saw in the theater hurt me. There was no way I was going to spend any more time than necessary on these movies. There was no way that after seeing these trailers in the theaters and knowing the people involved and knowing how they seem to repel good movies, I was just not going to do it. I could not do it. I know that's kind of a wussy thing to say, like if I actually fancy myself a legitimate reviewer of movies, unofficial though my nature is, I still consider myself someone who likes to talk about movies, who likes to weigh in the pros and cons, but and I hate doing that where I basically chicken out, but I couldn't do it. The Hangover 3 is one that I actually was kind of looking forward to. I liked the first Hangover. I did not like the second Hangover. I'm sure I'm not in a minority on this. The second Hangover is widely known to be a basically a carbon copy of the first Hangover movie, except not as good, and darker for some reason. And for some reason, they felt the need to make the third Hangover movie the darkest of them all, or at least attempt to do so by making it a crime thriller where they're getting threatened by John Goodman, and I don't even know what the Hangover 3 is trying to accomplish, because really the first Hangover, yeah, there was extreme stuff in that, but for the most part it was a lighthearted, stupid comedy. But upon hearing the reviews, how people were saying it is the worst of the trilogy, and some people were saying that it was downright unpleasant, I could not go to the theater to see it. I went to see Star Trek Into Darkness instead. I mean, in a month where Iron Man 3 and Star Trek Into Darkness were coming out, I just did not want to spend my time watching The Hangover Part 3. But at the very least, I did hear it was different than the first two, so I got to give it that. Let's see, what else? Not too much else. Smurfs 2, again, same deal with the Seltzerberg movies and Tyler Perry movies. I just could not do it. I could not, in good conscience, walk up to the ticket counter and say, one for Smurfs 2. The first Smurfs was completely pointless, and this is a continuing trend in Hollywood where they are taking these classic animated icons and turning them into really crappy movies. And at the forefront of that trend is a director named Raja Gosnell. He did the first two Scooby-Doo movies, the live-action ones, but at least those had redeeming qualities. At least one. You could tell that there was some ambition to it. You can tell that they were at least trying to make a good Scooby-Doo movie. They were trying to insert some drama. They were trying to bring Scooby-Doo to a modern audience and do it justice. And you could see that in some of the performances. Like I like Matthew Lillard's performance as Shaggy in those movies. Linda Cardellini as Velma. Didn't like Freddie Prinze Jr. I didn't like Sarah Michelle Gellar, but considering that those characters were basically nothing characters in the original Scooby-Doo TV shows, and I like Scooby-Doo. I've watched this. I remember watching it as a kid. I remember with fond memories. But I think it's just one of those things where if you're not going to pay tribute to the classic Scooby-Doo, then I don't really think a modern adaptation. Let me put it this way. I think it is possible to make a modern adaptation of Scooby-Doo, but I think it would be very difficult, and I don't think Raja Gosnell is the right guy. And I believe he also did Beverly Hills Chihuahua, another movie that looked too stupid to go see. And he made the first Smurfs movie back in 2011, which outgrossed Cowboys and Aliens for some reason. Probably just because it had the name Smurfs on it. People were going to see something just because it bore the name Smurfs. Because Smurfs was fairly popular. Cowboys and Aliens wasn't a good movie. Cowboys and Aliens was mediocre at best, and unbelievably stupid at its worst. But at least it was better than the Smurfs. At least there was effort. And Smurfs 2, I don't even know how to describe why people would go to see this movie. And reportedly, it did not do as well at the box office as the original. So maybe people were catching on. Maybe people were mad when the first one wasn't any good. But yeah. The Romeo and Juliet, the one with Haley Steinfeld and some other guy as Romeo. Douglas. I'm trying to think of the name, but I can't. But this one actually didn't look too bad. The set design was very good, or looked very good in the trailers. It looked like they really wanted to make a faithful adaptation of the original Shakespeare story, even though, in my opinion, the original Shakespeare story has not aged all that well. I mean, you could pick it apart. Like a lot of his works, you can really pick it apart. In these modern times, there are holes in the story. There are points where some stuff I don't think holds up. Some of the characters, some of the plot points, but I at least respect what Shakespeare did for English literature. But I heard that this adaptation was soulless, and I think that's the key word as to why it got bad reviews. Because if a love story is portrayed as soulless, then it's dead on arrival. If one of the greatest love stories of all time lacks passion and lacks any kind of human soul, then it's done. It's fundamentally finished. The remake of Carrie, another pointless remake by the woman who directed Boys Don't Cry, I believe it is. It was either the director of Boys Don't Cry or $1 Million Baby, one of those two. Kind of an odd choice for the director, but a completely unnecessary remake starring Chloe Moretz, who I don't think much of as an actress. I don't like her film choices. I don't think she's very good as an actress. I think a lot of the time she's miscast in these intense roles. And I think it's gotten to a point where she's actually typecasting herself. In these roles that just don't suit her, in these roles where I don't really think she has a whole lot of charisma. I don't really think she has much of a screen presence. I don't think she's a very good actress. And you pick her to take over from Sissy Spacek of the original Carrie. And I don't think much of Stephen King either, but I at least like to think I know when a Stephen King story is done right and when it's done wrong. The original Shining, there are problems with it, most notably Jack Nicholson. it at least established a creepy atmosphere and did not try to go for a word-for-word adaptation of Stephen King's stories, because Stephen King, I honestly don't think is a very good author. I mean, a lot of his characters are very, very unlikable. They lack dimension. And I admit that I'm primarily going by his bad stuff. I mean, I can at least acknowledge that he comes up with interesting ideas. But I think those ideas are realized much better in the movies than they are in the books. I know I could be in a minority on that, but that's just my opinion. And Carrie, on top of being unnecessary, I heard this one really, really overplays the whole psychic or telepathic element that was relatively subtle in the original. And when you take away the subtlety of a supposed horror movie, then it can easily be really laughable and really ridiculous, unless you know how to wield the over-the-top stuff well, like Sam Raimi does that well. The original The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, really knew how to wield the over-the-top scenes well and know how to keep that suspense going even after the over-the-top scenes where the Thing eats something or the Thing possesses someone. But this is just another in the long line of unnecessary remakes. And the final movie that I did not see but I heard was very, very bad was Walking with Dinosaurs. Now, I am a huge fan of the multitude of dinosaur documentaries that have been floating around for years. I mean, since the advent of CGI, there have been, or even before then, there have been numerous different kinds of documentaries or TV specials, like on BBC, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, and the original Walking with Dinosaurs really knew how to portray the at times very grim nature of the prehistoric times, because during prehistoric times there were no laws, there were no civilizations. It was basically kill or be killed. It was just a constant battle for survival. And the original BBC series really knew that. It rolled with that, and it was narrated very well by Kenneth Branagh. Now, if you take away the unobtrusive narration and replace it with obnoxious voice work and very kiddie juvenile jokes like poop, I can't talk. Like poop humor and puke scenes. You are trying to make it more mainstream, and that's not what Walking with Dinosaurs is. It's not what it was trying to do. I mean, Walking with Dinosaurs, as well as legions of other documentaries of that type, documentaries and miniseries, they could have narration. They could tell the story of one particular dinosaur. They could show the struggles that came from living in these times, but they didn't resort to the lowest common denominator of humor. They didn't try to appeal to kids. They didn't try to use all these modern phrases like worst migration ever. They didn't have Justin Long and John Leguizamo as the two main stars. From what I heard, this was originally going to be much more similar to the original BBC series, but wasn't. It decided to go with voice work sometime in post-production. Big mistake. I mean, I don't mind if you have narration. I mean, you want a better version of this movie? Watch the Dinosaur Planet miniseries, where each episode tells the story of one particular dinosaur in radically different geographical locations, radically different time periods, and they were narrated, I believe, by Christian Slater. But unlike what I hear this movie is doing, those Dinosaur Planet, the original Walking with Dinosaurs, and many other mediums of the same type, they could have narration, and they could fill the audience in on what was going on. They could fill the audience in about what the dinosaurs' instincts were telling it. But they were not constantly hammering you over the head with it. They were not constantly trying to reel kids back in. They were there to help audiences along the way of experiencing a day in the life of a dinosaur. They didn't try to make it mainstream. They didn't try to dumb it down. And that's where I think this movie dropped the ball. Because apparently that's the biggest, one of the only problems with it, but it just ruins the movie, and that's a real shame, because this movie looked gorgeous. This movie looked like a phenomenally fulfilling theatrical experience. I mean, it looks like you were going to go into the theater and literally step into prehistoric times. And to hear that they destroyed that by trying to appeal to kids, it just really saddens me to see such gorgeous animation and a beautifully realized world gone to waste. And this is where some people took issue with Disney's Dinosaur, the movie in 2000 that actually did some of the same techniques where they shot real locations, but used computer animation to put the dinosaurs in later. At least that movie, it was not talking down to kids. It was telling an enduring story about an everyman hero who goes on to do great things with members of his own kind. I mean, the story, we had seen it before, but just the way it was told, the way the actors read their lines, it felt, we didn't feel bored. At least I didn't feel bored. And another thing that movie did right is that even though the dinosaurs were talking in that movie, they were still behaving like dinosaurs. They weren't using a ton of modern slang. They were still acting like they were from the time period. They were still acting logically. So, yeah, Walking with Dinosaurs. I was thinking about going to see it, then I heard that it sucked, so I didn't. I do not think I could bear seeing a kind of animal and a kind of genre that I have admired for years just destroyed right before my eyes. I could not bear it. Now we come to the movies I did see that made it onto my list of the 10 worst movies of the year. Number 10 is Machete Kills. Now, this is a movie I was actually looking forward to because while I did like the first Machete, I did acknowledge some of the problems with it. I mean, when it comes to Robert Rodriguez movies, I like Desperado the best. I also like Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Machete, I think one of the biggest problems with the original Machete was the fact that they got a very limited actor, Danny Trejo, to be the lead. Danny Trejo seems to work best as a peripheral character. I mean, he seems to work best at most he should be a supporting character. And that's one problem that constantly plagued Machete Kills, is that Danny Trejo is going to all these places and he's meeting all these different characters, all of whom, or nearly all of whom, completely outshine him. They completely upstage him in terms of their performance, because he is just sitting there scowling, he mumbles, he he's really showing his limitations as an actor. When you have guys like Antonio Banderas, William Sadler, Cuba Gooding Jr., it's all doing their best with their very limited screen time. And that's another thing wrong with this movie is that the overall structure of it feels like numerous sketches that are thrown together and somehow made into a movie. It doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like a series of sketches. And not sketches that are that well written. I mean, when you have sketch after sketch after sketch that decrease in quality from mediocre to downright wretched, it makes for a very boring experience. This looked like a very fun, stupid movie. And a lot of people, this movie did not do well at the box office at all. A lot of people, I guess, took issue with the fact that it had Mel Gibson in one of the lead roles. People are still sore about Mel Gibson. I'm not advocating the views he has expressed. I'm not advocating anything that he has said as being morally right. But I still maintain the belief that Mel Gibson is one heck of an actor. He is a fantastic actor. And when I heard he was going to be the bad guy, I was like, yes! Because the last movie I saw him in, I think, was Get the Gringo, which was a good movie. But I saw him playing the bad guy in all the trailers of Machete Kills, and I was like, wow, he looks like he's having fun. This looks like a very fun movie. And sure enough, Mel Gibson was the best part of this movie. A close second was Demian Bichir. Demian Bichir is one of the only supporting characters who does not die within 5 minutes of showing up. He's in about half the movie as this slimy mobster, I think, whose heartbeat is connected to this bomb, and Machete wants to kill him. President Charlie Sheen, or I'm sorry, Carlos Estevez. That's another reason I think this movie didn't do well, because I think people were like, ugh, Charlie Sheen, ugh, Mel Gibson, oh my god. Charlie Sheen, I acknowledge, is a very limited actor, and considering he was in Scary Movie 5, I'm not sure I would be in a movie that he was in either. Or I would watch a movie that he's in either, but Mel Gibson, I really think people need to give him a second chance. I honestly do. But Demian Bichir is in about half the movie, but sure enough, at about around the halfway point, he gets killed by Mel Gibson, and Mel Gibson plays this really intense mob boss, I think. I'm trying to remember what happens in this movie. It is that transparent. It is that forgettable. Because, like I said, it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like a bunch of scenes that were thrown together. It doesn't feel cinematic. And a lot of the stuff that is played for comedy, while some of it works, a lot of it just feels like fan fiction. A lot of it just feels like, oh, what if Machete did this? Or what if Machete did that? And the writer of this, if he has written something, he's only written like one or two things, and it shows. There is very little cinematic experience in the script for this. Right at the point where Robert Rodriguez isn't doing too hot, because I think the last movie of his that got positive reviews was the original Machete back in 2010. Since then, he has done Spy Kids 4, which was a phenomenal waste of time, and now he has done Machete Kills, which is also a waste of time. Although I will say this, Machete Kills is better than Spy Kids 4. I will give it that. But it's too self-indulgent. That's another problem with it. It's too self-indulgent. it thinks it's being funny. It thinks it is much more clever than it actually is in its blatant self-indulgence. It keeps kind of winking to the camera. There is so much winking to the camera in this movie that it gets old real fast. And like I said, Demian Bashir is really good in the movie. I really liked his character, but then they kill him off. Mel Gibson, I really like his character, but then they burn his face off. And they do a really stupid To Be Continues, where Mel Gibson takes off in his spacecraft, and they show this fake trailer for Machete Kills Again in Space. I don't think a sequel is in the cards, Robert. I really don't. Maybe with the first one, but the Machete series, at least at this point, has nothing on the El Mariachi trilogy. I mean, you want a better version of these movies. I'm not talking so much with the plots of these movies, but with the subject matter and the way that they kind of play out. Watch the El Mariachi trilogy. The acting's better, the story is better, the humor is better. Everything is better in El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Watch those movies, not this. And it's really sad to see Mel Gibson in another bad movie, because yeah, that's another thing. That's another recommendation I will make. Watch Get the Gringo, because the humor, that's a somewhat comedic movie. That uses a lot of dark comedy. Watch that. It's a better modern Mel Gibson movie that did not get the attention that it should have. But yeah, Machete Kills, it was not nearly as fun as it was marketed to be. Number 9 is Paranoia. Paranoia actually looked alright. I thought it looked alright. Because Gary Oldman and Harrison Ford were playing these two rival CEOs, and Liam Hemsworth was caught in the middle. It looked like this really intense corporate espionage thriller. And then I saw some of the reviews. I saw that it was, I think, the worst reviewed movie of the summer, under Grown Ups 2. Now, with that being said, I would rather watch Paranoia again any day of the week than watch Grown Ups 2, because Grown Ups 2 and a lot of Happy Madison movies elicit anger from me and elicit revulsion and disgust from me. Paranoia was just a never-ending stream of mediocrity. But I think that's exactly why it ended up on this list. Is because you take this interesting premise, you take this interesting genre of the corporate espionage thriller, and you bring absolutely nothing new to the table. And apparently, this was based on a book that was I don't know if it was a bestseller or anything, but it was at least more well received than the movie. And the acting is not very good. Liam Hemsworth is bland. Harrison Ford is very wooden. He's not very good in the movie. Gary Oldman is kind of fun. I mean, Gary Oldman, he can be over the top at times, but I wanted a movie about Gary Oldman. But the writing is just, it can at times get really unintentionally hilarious, because Gary Oldman is, a lot of the time, is mustache twirlingly evil during the movie. He's kind of sticking his nose up at Liam Hemsworth as he's trying to give a presentation. And some of the visual humor comes from just who Liam Hemsworth hangs out with, because he and his friends are all college age, and his 3 or 4 friends are all dressed like characters out of The Big Bang Theory. Like they have their glasses, they have these stereotypical nerd clothes. It's like The Big Bang Theory if The Big Bang Theory sucked. but but all of Liam Hemsworth's friends, who honestly are more sympathetic than Liam Hemsworth's character himself. All of them are dressed like the stereotypical movie nerd with the glasses and the very slicked hair and and the nice clothes and the pens in the pockets. And then you have Liam Hemsworth, who looks like this big jock. He doesn't button his suit. He's this big, bulky, jock-looking guy who hangs out with these stereotypical nerds, and you're supposed to believe that he is on the same thinking plane. He is on the same level of intelligence as his friends. It's kind of funny to watch, but the humor wears out after about 5 seconds, and like I said, Liam Hemsworth is not very likable in the movie. He's bland, but he's also kind of unlikable because just some of the stuff that he does. He treats his friends like dirt. They try to make it out like he's the only one with any kind of ambition. He's the only one bound to succeed because they're all too afraid. But honestly, they come across as vastly more intelligent and more sane than Liam Hemsworth, because he uses company money from the company that he works at to go out clubbing with his friends after, like, in retaliation for them not picking up a new piece of technology that they were presenting. So shock and awe. He gets caught by Gary Oldman and blackmailed. It's just a very incompetent, very pointless movie. That's really the best word I can describe it as, is pointless. They don't bring anything new to the genre. The acting is not very good. The writing is painfully standard. There are absolutely no surprises. At most, I could say that it has some fairly decent shots of the city. But when that's the best thing I can say about it, you might want to stop and think, where did we go wrong? Number 8 is Bullet to the Head. Not a fan of Sylvester Stallone. I mean, I like whenever he does. I like some of his I like some of the movies where he's not trying to do drama. Like, I like Expendables 2, all right. But the movies but others of his movies I just find very painful, and this is one of those where the plot is so stupid. Stallone plays this guy whose daughter is a tattoo artist, and he teams up with the Asian guy from the Fast and the Furious movies, and they're getting chased around by these mobsters because the Asian guy is this secret agent, and they constantly have this argument. They constantly argue about like, well, what's to stop me from killing you, or why should I help you, or I'm turning on you right now. No, you're not, because I have your gun. It's half the movie is like that, where they're just arguing back and forth in the car. Neither of them are very likable. They would each be willing to turn on the other, and it's not endearing or it's not charming in any way. It's just irritating because this constantly brings the movie to a standstill. The humor is not very good. The movie thinks it's being funnier than it actually is. The villains are completely forgettable. The plot is forgettable. I forget what happens in this movie. And with an action movie like this, I can't even remember the plot. It has no memorable story. Eventually, eventually Stallone's daughter, played by Sarah Shahi, I hope that's how you say her name because she was actually decent in the movie. She gets kidnapped by the villains who I can't remember, and Stallone has to go save her, and he and the FBI agent argue some more. It's just a very forgettable movie. At times, it's very irritating. Stallone is so hyped up on steroids at this point that you can barely understand what he's saying. He has no charisma. He has no dramatic acting ability. He can't talk. This movie is repetitive. This movie is not shot very well. It's shot by Walter Hill, who did. I'm blanking on what he did, but he's done good movies in the past. I don't know how he wound up doing this movie, but this is an irritating Stallone flick. It's annoying. It's repetitive. It's forgettable. I didn't think I'd use those three adjectives to describe one movie, but there you go. There you go. The acting is at times obnoxious. Christian Slater is alright. Sarah Shahi is alright. Jason Momoa. I can remember one villain from this. It's Jason Momoa, who plays. He's in all the trailers. He's in most of the promotional material for this movie. He's marketed as the main bad guy, but they don't give him any personality. They don't give him any character. He just does what the other bad guys tell him to do until the very end, where for some reason he goes off on his own and spontaneously develops this very cocky personality. I don't know where it came from, but the final battle, the final axe fight between Stallone and Momoa, it's shot decently, but I'm supposed to believe that Jason Momoa gets. I'm supposed to believe he gets beat up by Sylvester Stallone. No. Not only does he have the age advantage, he's more spry than Stallone, but with Momoa, his muscles look real. His muscles look real. He's taller than Stallone. He's leaner than Stallone. He's, like I said, he has the age advantage. I mean, he's closer to his prime than Stallone is. But the movie needs Stallone to win because he's apparently the hero. I wanted a movie about Jason Momoa because Jason Momoa is one of those actors who is a good actor, and he can be either likable or intimidating, but he keeps being in bad movies. This and the remake of Conan the Barbarian. I want to see him in some good movies, and I liked him at the end when he actually got a chance to shine, where he actually got a chance to act instead of just looking all brooding like that and doing what he was told. I completely forget what happens in this movie, just like the next movie. The next movie is Die Hard, A Good Day to Die Hard. Okay. The Die Hard series, I think, is a mixed package, because really, I think the only great Die Hard movie is the first Die Hard movie. The rest of them just descend into mediocrity. The second one is almost a carbon copy of the first one. They just change locations. The third one is just boring and repetitive. It's kind of like Bullet to the Head, where Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson argue about the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's not funny. Live Free or Die Hard doesn't even feel like a Die Hard movie. But Timothy Olyphant was I think the wrong guy. Or it could be how it was written, because I think Timothy Olyphant played his part fine in Live Free or Die Hard, but I'm supposed to believe that this hardcore action hero, John McClane, goes up against a a tech villain, a computer hacker. You couldn't do any better than that. But A Good Day to Die Hard, right when the Die Hard series is about to die, you bring in the director of the Max Payne movie, and Skip Woods. Skip Woods, who has written almost nothing but crap. He has written nothing but crap. I think the best movie was X-Men Origins Wolverine. I think that was his best movie, and that wasn't very good. It was, but there were at least good parts of that movie. A Good Day to Die Hard, same thing with Bullet to the Head. I completely forget what happens in this movie. John McClane goes to Russia to get his son, who is undercover, who's trying to get at this important political figure who's secretly working with the mafia, I think. And what do they want? What do the bad guys want? Money? I mean, I don't know what they were planning. I don't know what John McClane thought they were planning, but Bruce Willis sleeps through this performance like every single one of his performances nowadays. Bruce Willis thinks he is more marketable and more valuable than he actually is. I'm actually very glad that he's not going to be in The Expendables 3. Because Stallone, as much as I don't like him as an actor, he's a decent guy. Bruce Willis is just a dick. Bruce Willis is pretentious. And you can tell that he does not give a crap about what is going on in Die Hard 5. He does not give a crap about his son's character. He does not give a crap about the plot. He does not give a crap about his performance. He is just kind of sitting there going like, yeah, I'm Bruce Willis. I'm in this movie because it's a Die Hard movie. Go see it, stupid audience. Really the only person. Jay Courtney, who plays his son, tries. He tries to pull something off. But the character is not written well at all, because every single one of the conversations that he has with his dad, they're making some snide remark about how like, we're not a hugging family. Don't you wish we had some father-son time? We're not that kind of family. Blah 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 blah. It gets very repetitive. It suffers from a lot of the same problems that Bullet to the Head suffers from, except worse, because there are numerous sequences of shaky cam, which is a continuing plague on Hollywood that needs to die a horrible death. But the movie uses shaky cam when it doesn't need to. The cinematography is god awful. A lot of the time it's hard to tell what's going on, even during the scenes where there's no action. And the action itself is just so over the top. I mean, remember in the first Die Hard where there weren't too many over the top stunts? There were some, but in theory you could buy that being a human man, John McClane would be able to survive a lot of the stuff that happens in that movie. I mean, the suspense did not come from having an explosion or a car crash in every other scene. The suspense came from John McClane crawling around wounded, unequipped in this building and trying to outwit the bad guys. Here, he gets into this really over the top car crash at the beginning. And I was thinking, man, he's gonna come out bleeding from the neck. He's gonna come out with shrapnel in his back. I mean, he's going to come out nearly dead. But no, he gets out. There's not even a scratch on him. There are numerous points like that where he and Jay Courtney are involved in these really over the top stunts and go through these superhuman feats without any kind of visible damage. Like Jay Courtney gets impaled by this spike at one point, and Bruce Willis pulls it out. He acts like it hurts for like 2 seconds, and then he's fine. He's fine to go shoot up some bad guys again. The plot is a mess. The movie has no primary villain. The primary villain, they try to do a plot twist, where it's this character who we've barely gotten to know. The movie, Die Hard. You are a Die Hard movie, and you don't have a primary villain. You keep switching villains. The movie constantly switches villains. Like, it's this guy now. Now it's this guy. Now it's this guy. Pick one. Pick one and allow him to build some menace. Allow him to build some screen presence. Allow him to have some villainous banter and have a fun dynamic with John McClane and his son. Don't... Oh my god, this movie is just so incompetent. It's not shot well. It's not acted well. It's not written well. It's just not... It's the worst... Yeah, it's the worst Die Hard movie. But it's one of the most incompetent action movies I've seen in a while. It's stupid, it's needlessly over the top, and it adds yet another poor entry in this aging franchise. Next movie is After Earth. I don't mean to jump on the bandwagon of M. Night Shyamalan sucks, but I think he's earned any rap that he's gotten by now. Because M. Night Shyamalan has steadily gone down from The Sixth Sense to The Last Airbender to this, After Earth. I don't even know where to start. It's stupid. Yeah, it's stupid. And for some reason, the director feels the need to have his actors talk in this really weird speech pattern. Will Smith looks asleep. He looks half asleep through... No. I'm going to go further. He looks 3/4 of the way asleep all throughout this movie. Will Smith is not awake for any scenes in this movie. His son has no charisma. He has no charm. He does not have the acting chops for this. I don't even know why I should discuss any of the other actors in the movie. They don't get anything to do. The effects are just pathetic. I mean, every single one of the animals looks completely fake. I mean, the CGI lacks texture. It is not animated very, very smoothly. You never really get a sense that the Earth is a very hostile place. You never really get a sense that the humans could not just move back to Earth. I mean, oh no, slightly oversized animals. What will we do? The Earth is fine. We can go back to Earth. I mean, at most, you might have to make room because of all the plant life. But there is no sense where you get that Jaden Smith has to do something very extreme or very unpleasant to survive. He survives fine. The journey that he makes over a few kilometers is actually insultingly easy. I mean, you'd think he would at least sustain some type of lasting damage or gaping wound at the end of it, but no, he's fine. There was no danger that he did not put himself in. He does not listen. The characters are so boring. The story is so boring. This future sucks. Why aren't there any guns? This is one of the many problems that I have with the Hunger Games movies. Is that if it's the future, why are there no guns? What happened to all the guns? Did they just abolish guns? And even then, you'd think that some type of firearms would be available through the black market, or maybe on standby just in case. just in case law enforcement needed to use them. But now I'm going off on a completely different tangent here. There are no guns in this future. This future is just very stupid. Every time they unveil a new piece of technology, you just either question it or laugh at it. This movie is brought to us by a director who has basically used up any audience loyalty that he once had. M. Night Shyamalan is no longer held in high regard by many audience members. I would like to see him make a comeback. I would like to think that he has at least one good movie left in him. But if he keeps doing what he's been doing, where he insists on writing everything that he directs, then I think it's only going to get worse. And if not, then it's not going to get any better. Writing movies is not working for him. He still knows how to direct a movie, for the most part. You wouldn't guess that by watching this movie, because honestly, the direction is not good in this movie at all. Like I said, the performances are not good. The direction feels like a TV movie. The direction feels like, or either a TV movie or a direct-to-video movie. Heck, I've seen direct-to-video movies that are better directed than this. You wouldn't think a high-profile Hollywood director would be responsible for this, but the story makes no sense. The writing is completely ridiculous. The characters are boring. The future world is not well realized. It does not feel like something that we would eventually reach. The effects are laughable. It's just, the movie just reeks of incompetence. It's a good thing it's only about 100 minutes long, because if it went longer, I could have easily seen a lot of people walking out. This movie did not do that well at the box office, so maybe people are catching on to Shyamalan. But yeah, it was an experience that very nearly put me to sleep. The next movie is The Host. Andrew Niccol's The Host. Andrew Niccol is another director, not quite to the extent of Shyamalan, but Andrew Niccol is another director who has done good movies in the past. He did Gattaca, but he directs this, and I'm not saying it's all his fault. Obviously, we can place some of the blame on him for accepting the movie, but it's the writing. It's like in the Twilight movies, how the director of Golden Compass directed New Moon, but New Moon was still crap. David Slade directed Eclipse. Eclipse was still crap. Another high-profile director, Bill Condon, did Breaking Dawn. Breaking Dawn Parts 1 and 2 were still loathsome crap. So, I don't really know how much you can blame the director for something that is written by Stephenie Meyer. The Host, like I said, is worse than any of the Twilight movies, and it suffers from some of the same problems as After Earth. It is boring, and the future is not well realized. The future is unintentionally hilarious at times, and I get that it's supposed to be this kind of eerie future. Not really a whole lot of style. Not really a whole lot of personalization. Not really a whole lot of individuality in this future because of the alien presence and how all the aliens basically live in constant harmony with each other, but it makes for a very dull setting for a movie. This movie is shot well. It's, I mean, some of the cinematography is all right, but if that's the best thing I can say, then you're in trouble. You're in trouble. This movie is the gimmick of Southern Saoirse Ronan constantly yelling in your ears at to simulate her consciousness still being in her body, despite her body being under the control of an alien, is very annoying, very grating. It makes the whole experience so much worse. The performances are terrible. They are terrible all around, except for Saoirse Ronan, and at times Diane Kruger. At some of the time, Diane Kruger can be all right, but that still doesn't change the fact that her character is not written well. William Hurt does not even look awake. He looks, I don't even know why he's in this movie, but it wasn't because he believed in the project. That much I can tell you. That much you can figure out from his performance. He looks totally uninvested, and why even get him in the first place? It's getting William Hurt in this is like getting Jeff Bridges to play Bella's father in the Twilight movies. It's pointless to get a big name actor like that to play this type of role, this type of minor role. But at the very least, Billy Burke gave a good performance in the Twilight movies. William Hurt, like I said, he just looks asleep. He looks like he's about to fall over and take a nap every scene he's in. His character, I don't even know what his character's about because he doesn't show any emotion. He doesn't show any... And he's not written with any emotion. He's written very blandly. He's written without any ounce of personality. So, again, I don't really know how much I can blame William Hurt because he had nothing to work with. But he can at least try. Or trying in a Stephenie Meyer movie. Again, I can't really blame you for not trying. But, Saoirse Ronan, at least in her screen portrayal, is not bad, and she can be all right, even though her characters are thoroughly unlikable. They are very stupid. They are very petty. You don't get the. It's just. I'm struggling to find words or phrases to describe this movie. It's very much a chore to sit through. That's one thing I had to give After Earth. At least it was short. At least it was relatively short. This thing is over 2 hours long. This thing is like 2 hours and 10 minutes, or at least it feels like it. At least I think that it's around there. After Earth was about 90 minutes, maybe a little more. It was... I mean, in comparison to The Host, it was a quick in and out. The Host, in supposedly trying to start a new series of Twilight-esque movies, it's like I said with some other movies, it likes to think it is more important, and it is saying much more than it actually is. The story is not compelling in the least. Why should I root for these humans? These humans are idiots. These humans are violent, animalistic idiots. The aliens are taking much better care of the planet than the humans have ever done. The aliens, there are no wars, there is no pollution. They live in harmony with each other. The humans capture aliens and dissect them. They kill aliens. They want to kill all the aliens. I don't agree. I don't necessarily agree with the aliens' mass invasion and psychological enslavement, but when it comes to when it comes to civil when it comes to society, when it comes to when it comes to when it comes to the area of civil unrest and how the species lives in relation to each other on the planet, the aliens are more fit to take care of this planet. At least how they and the humans are portrayed in this movie. Again, why should I root for the humans? They're idiots. The romance, like Twilight, is only done in the perspective of purely physical. The two guys that form the love square. It's kind of complicated to describe. The two guys are completely forgettable. They are completely wooden. They are not compelling in the least. Neither of the two love stories are compelling in the least. The only thing I have to take away from it is that the cinematography is good. Diane Kruger can be decent at times, and Saoirse Ronan gives a much better performance than this movie deserves. But her voiceover, annoying. All the rest of the performances, wooden and dull. The future world, completely boring and uninteresting, and a waste of visual potential. The story, this movie has no structure. A lot of the scenes do not connect to each other. A lot of the scenes just feel meshed in. It's just a thoroughly incompetently written movie. This movie has laughably bad writing. And it feels much longer than it actually is. It's not short by any means. But instead of 2 hours, it feels like 3. Kick-Ass 2. Kick-Ass 2, I did not like the first Kick-Ass. And like I said, I don't like Chloe Moretz. But the thing with Kick-Ass 2 is that while the first one at least had some fairly solid direction, at least you could tell that the director did have a steady hand. This thing is shot like a commercial. It suffers from some of the same problems as Machete Kills. It doesn't feel like a movie. It may not feel like a sketch show like Machete Kills did, but it feel like I said, it's shot like a commercial. It's edited like a commercial. It feels like one big commercial advertising itself. It feels like a mess. The story has very little coherence. A lot of the time, the movie seems to get sidetracked between the main character, Kick-Ass, Hit Girl, the numerous other heroes, or the very annoying McLovin character, the McLovin villain. I got an idea. When you want to have a thoroughly annoying villain who is not funny, who is neither funny nor intimidating, and only serves to get on your nerves, with an annoying voice and an annoying shtick, why don't you have McLovin? This movie is just obnoxious. This movie seems to think that just because a lot of the first movie was obnoxious, that was the only reason that it worked for a lot of people. It didn't work for me. Like I said, I didn't like the first Kick-Ass, but I kind of saw why a lot of people liked it. This movie is just, the direction is piss poor. The cinematography, I doubt there is a single cut that goes on for more than 5 seconds. It suffers from shaky cam during the action scenes. It has no style. I mean, what little style it has is trying very poorly to imitate the style of the first movie. The acting, there is a very inconsistent tone in this movie. I mean, at times it wants to be a serious superhero, a serious dramatic superhero movie, while at other times it wants to be a comedy, a very juvenile, gross out comedy. Pick one. And if you're not going to pick one, at least try and make these types of scenes blend better. Don't have a heavy scene where Kick-Ass's dad gets killed by the bad guys and it's all sad and he's crying on the floor, and then immediately shift over to Hit Girl. I don't know, using a stick from Minority Report on a bunch of school bullies. I've said this a lot about numerous movies on this list. It just reeks of directorial incompetence. The ineptitude when it comes to the writing and directing of this is just mind-boggling. And this movie, I saw kids. There was a guy in my screening who took his three or four kids to see this movie. And these kids were like 10 years old, if that. You're taking them to see this. You know, at the very least, Aaron Taylor Johnson seems to be trying. He seems to be trying to pull something off. His dad seems to be trying to pull something off. Morris Chestnut is trying, even though his serious performance is very ill-suited to this movie. This whole movie, when the best part of your movie is Jim Carrey in about 10 minutes of your movie, you got problems. Jim Carrey was the best part of this movie, but he's in it 10-15 minutes max, then he dies. Apparently he has disowned this movie on the grounds that it is too violent in the wake of Sandy Hill. Jim Carrey didn't need any other reason to disown this movie other than the fact that then it's a crappy movie. It's a bad movie. The story reeks of incompetence and inconsistent tone. It's not told very well. It's a mess. The acting is, at best, it's okay, and at worst, it's completely terrible. Chloe Moretz is terrible in this movie. She was terrible in the first one, but she's even worse here. McLovin is terrible. The villain's terrible. The other heroes, completely forgettable. And at times very annoying. The juvenile humor, completely unwelcome. The cinematography, vomit-inducing. The direction, inexperienced and just lacking any style, lacking any semblance of steady hand, lacking any semblance of experience. And apparently this comic book was not nearly as well received as the first movie, as the first comic, Kick-Ass comic, which doesn't shock me at all. It's a mess. It's a very unpleasant mess because a lot of the juvenile gross out humor does not work, and it only serves to make you either groan or cringe in revulsion. And the heavy scenes feel unwarranted in the wake of such juvenile humor. And yeah, I just had a very bad time sitting through this movie. Paranoia has gotten a lower score on Rotten Tomatoes than Kick-Ass 2, but I would rather watch Paranoia any day of the week. and I say that because they came out the same weekend. Paranoia is better than this. I don't care what Rotten Tomatoes says. Paranoia is better than Kick-Ass 2. Because at least Paranoia didn't hurt me. At least Paranoia did not elicit anger from me. At least Paranoia, I was sitting there thinking, this movie is not good by any stretch of the imagination, but it's mostly just a nothing experience. It's mostly just a forgettable experience. Kick-Ass 2, I was pissed sitting in that theater. I was visibly annoyed multiple times. And as soon as the credits rolled, I just walked out and did not give the movie, or tried not to give the movie a second thought. Oh my god. Next movie is Texas Chainsaw 3D. Yeah, January movie. Texas Chainsaw 3D. It's kind of the same deal with Die Hard, in that there's really no point to making another one of these movies. The franchise needs to die. The franchise needs to be put to bed. I don't even know why there is a franchise. Really, according to a lot of the critics and a lot of audience members, the only good Texas Chainsaw is the original. They made a franchise out of that, and then they remade it, and then they made a prequel to the remake, and now they're making this reboot, which supposedly retcons everything that we have seen up to this point except for the original. It's supposedly a direct sequel to the original. But even then, it does not work. This is a very... At best, it completely fails in any scares or shock value it was going for. And at its worst, it's just kind of funny. It's kind of funny when Leatherface shows up. And this plot gets so dumb. Because we find out the main girl, the Alexandra Daddario chick, she is distantly related to Leatherface, or she's his cousin, and she now has to take care of Leatherface, even though he killed all her friends. And there's this conspiracy going on with the members of this town where apparently no one from Leatherface's family can live. It turns into this very messy, very boring, ultimately boring thriller movie halfway through. Leatherface is not the main bad guy. He's been reduced to an anti-hero. Do you really want Leatherface as an anti-hero? Really? Are we gonna... I will say this. The gore was alright. But a lot of the times I couldn't tell whether the movie wanted to be funny and self-indulgent or whether it wanted to produce genuine scares. There's not really enough distinction between the two. The characters are very stupid. You do not care about any of them because like the trap a lot of horror movies slip into nowadays, the only reason that there is a movie is because the characters are thoroughly incompetent and unlikable. And really, they bring their deaths upon themselves a lot of the time, and that's very much true of this movie. It's very... By the end of the movie, you don't really feel like this added anything to the Texas Chainsaw franchise. It does not produce any of the raw scares that previous entries have achieved. It does not, like I said, it does not add anything to the franchise or the character of Leatherface. They tried to deepen his character but fail. I mean, it serves as a detriment to Leatherface, actually. I mean, it erases some of the mystery. It does not... You don't really feel any kind of empathy for this guy. You don't feel any kind of pity. Alexandra Daddario is not likable. A lot of the time, it seems like she was thrown in for sex appeal. The direction is very, very incompetent. I want to say that it's a first-time director doing this, but I can't be sure. This movie does not utilize 3D well at all. This movie did not need to be in 3D. It's yet another movie that unnecessarily expands, reimagines, remakes, or reboots an older movie. An older movie that honestly did not need any other expansion. We didn't need a remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the early 2000s. We do not need a direct sequel now. It's it's not good. It doesn't work as a Texas Chainsaw movie, and it does not work as a horror movie because a lot of the scares come off as unintentionally hilarious. A lot of the characters come off as teeth-grindingly stupid. And a lot of the plot twists you can either see coming a mile away and or are only brought about by the character's incompetence. It's just a very unfulfilling movie. Like the next movie on my list. Number 2, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. This movie, I don't know how this movie came about. Someone had to be taking some kind of drugs, or some person had to be drunk. One of the studio executives had to be drunk to greenlight this piece of crap. This movie is directed by some guy named Tommy Warkola. I have no idea what this guy has done, but it stars Jeremy Renner as Hansel and Gemma Arterton as Gretel. It has Peter Stormare as the sheriff of this town that is plagued by witches. It has Famke Janssen as the lead witch. This movie is one of those movies where it didn't really elicit rage from me, or at least not all the time. Because a lot of the scenes are played they are probably played straighter than they should have been. This movie comes from a very, very, very stupid idea. When I saw the trailers, even when I saw the title, when you see the title of this movie, you basically know that it's not going to be any good. I know that's like judging a book by its cover, but this thing is just so ridiculous. Whenever they try to play the scene straight, you're distracted by just how ridiculous everything is. You're distracted by how laughable a lot of the filmmaking by a lot of the filmmaking aspects of this movie. Jeremy Renner just looks bored. Gemma Arterton is trying, but the direction does not know how to wield her energy in any way to make her a likable character. I mean, Peter Stormare just phones it in, which is a shame because I like Peter Stormare. In fact, if you want a Peter Stormare movie that came out in January that's better, watch The Last Stand, where he plays kind of a supporting villain. Famke Janssen is doing some weird hybrid between a British and an American accent. Again, a better Famke Janssen movie, watch The Wolverine. But she and a lot of the other witch actresses let the makeup do most of the acting for them. This makeup walks a line between ridiculous and gross out, where it's just so over the top that the actresses feel a need to go along with its ridiculousness. These witches are like something out of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They're not intimidating. They're not they're not funny. Were they meant to be funny? I don't know. Was the movie meant to be funny? Because a lot of the time it didn't really seem funny. It seemed to be trying to play it straight a lot of the time, and it's not one of those things where it's not one of those kind of Mel Brooks deals where it's funny because they are playing this ridiculous situation straight. No, it's instead more akin to I don't know if I'm supposed to take this seriously because of the way that they are playing it, or if I'm supposed to laugh because of some of the over-the-top stuff in the movie. I mean, there is a tonal inconsistency. Famke Janssen doesn't actually become the main villain until about halfway through, when Peter Stormare bites the bullet. He gets killed by a mediocre troll animatronic. The movie has no variety in terms of its setting. I mean, it looks like whenever they're in the forest, it looks like they're running through the same two areas of the forest multiple times. There's no variety there. And as a result, a lot of the scenes feel repetitive because you're just seeing them in the same location over and over and over again with no mixing it up. You were seeing them fight in the same location over and over and over again. The gore effects, there is so much CGI blood in this movie. There's a point where all the witches are flying toward the heroes, and the heroes have rigged up wires across a few trees, and the witches basically get carved up like cheese. And all this CGI blood comes flying toward the camera. It's just a very... I was kind of irritated by this movie, but like I said, I wasn't enraged by it. A lot of the time I was just going like, this is just dull. This is trying to have some type of style. It's trying to have some type of goofy, over-the-top substance to it. It's trying to be this very trashy entertainment flick, and it's just failing. It repeatedly fails at evoking any sense of fun. It repeatedly fails at engaging the audience in the story or the characters. It's just a nothing movie. Honestly, it feels like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. It does feel like that. It doesn't feel like something that should have been released in theaters. It feels more like a direct-to-video flick. It feels more like a very trashy direct-to-video movie. Not something that you want your theatrical release to evoke from someone. But yeah, it wasn't a very enjoyable experience. It wasn't even laughably bad. It was just dull. It was boring. Or at times it was boring. I wasn't as bored during this as I was during After Earth or The Host. Because this is shorter than both of them, and just when I'm starting to get very, very annoyed with the movie, it stops. It just ends. So I have to give it that. It's mercifully short. But the reason it's higher on this list, the reason that I'm ranking it worse than The Host and After Earth, is because at least those movies seem to have some type of ambition to them. This movie is just a very stupid idea, fully realized to very mediocre degree by a director who I've never heard of, with mediocre performances, a very disengaging story, dull, bland characters who have no dynamic to them whatsoever. I mean, there is no chemistry between Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton. Famke Janssen, even when she's there, is not intimidating. It's like Die Hard 5. It switches villains from Peter Stormare to Famke Janssen, neither of whom are intimidating or menacing, neither of whom are written very well. Both of them are very two-dimensional and just lacking motivation. Because Peter Stormare's character is just a jerk just for the sake of being a jerk. He's not really given any kind of motivation or backstory. Famke Janssen at least has that small excuse of wanting to kill Hansel and Gretel because they're witch hunters and she wants to make the witches all powerful. At least it's a goal, but we never really understand why she's doing this. So again, two-dimensional action villain that lacks any kind of motivation as to why. Maybe I'm thinking I'm giving this movie way more thought and way more analysis than it deserves. Maybe if you have very, very, very low expectations and you rented it for $1 from Redbox, or maybe if you checked it out from your local library, maybe you will get some type of escapist enjoyment out of this, because I would rather watch this than a Happy Madison movie any day of the week. But that's not saying much. And to be honest, I might be able to picture someone having some type of escapist, trashy fun with this movie. I didn't. I just thought it was dull. And the number one worst movie of the year is movie 43. Movie 43 is... There were top critics who were calling this the worst movie they had ever seen. One of the worst theater experiences they have ever had. The worst comedy they had ever seen. This is not the worst movie I've ever seen. But it's in the top 5. It might even be in the top 3. And there is no doubt that this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. I just felt so despicable and so stupid sitting in that theater watching movie 43. It's a sketch movie. None of the sketches work. They get progressively worse. Not a single joke works. Not a single visual gag, not a single one-liner, not a single bit of comedy works. In fact, nearly all of the comedy only served to make me cringe in my seat. Only served to make me question why I paid money to see it. There is no reason to ever watch this movie. There is none. There is nothing to justify wasting your time with this. There is nothing to laugh at. There is nothing to see here that has not been done better in other movies. Like I said, one of the biggest problems with this movie is that it just disgusted me. I got so pissed watching this movie. I got so angry during this movie, but after a while that kind of subsided and was subsequently replaced by just sadness and hoping that the end of the movie would come soon, where I would mercifully be able to get up and leave. And sure enough, as soon as I started to see the faintest hint of the credits coming up, after the Terrence Howard sketch, I leapt out of my seat and ran out of the theater. I am aware that I missed the Josh Duhamel sketch with the animated cat sometime during or after the credits, but honestly, I do not care. I sat through the main movie. I will never, ever, ever watch movie 43 again. I will never, by choice, experience any of these scenes again. I'll tell you the one time that this movie elicited any kind of remotely positive reaction from me is when Dennis Quaid is talking to Greg Kinnear, and Greg Kinnear is asking, "How did you get in? How did you get in here? How did you get past the security guard?" And Dennis Quaid, one of the many actors whose reputation is forever tarnished by being in this piece of crap, Dennis Quaid basically says, "Oh, I blew your security guard to get in." And Greg Kinnear is like, I didn't know he was gay." And Quaid is like, "He's not. He fought me every step of the way." That was the one time that this movie ever got me to smirk, which is more than I can say for any other part of this movie. Every single one of these sketches is thoroughly painful to sit through. Every single one of them is completely ridiculous. It insults your intelligence. Even the Happy Madison audience would be offended by this. A lot of the time, I could not even tell where the punchline was supposed to be, and as a result, you're just left with the completely disgusting imagery and disgusting verbal imagery that the actors are planting in your head that this movie presents, without any kind of humor. Like, oh, the first sketch is Kate Winslet and Hugh Jackman on a blind date, but the thing is, Hugh Jackman has a scrotum on his neck. That's it. There's no other joke. There's no punchline. The only person who is aware of the scrotum on his neck is Kate Winslet, and 5 or 7 minutes of her acting all grossed out by constantly having to be in close proximity with Hugh Jackman with a scrotum on his chin. That's really all you get. It's really all you get because really the only other thing is that I don't know, a hair from the scrotum falls in his soup, and he eats it. Ho ho ho! Gross out humor. Oh my god. Oh. Damn. This movie is vile, repulsive, disgusting, unpleasant, cruel, mean-spirited, idiotic, insulting. It is a thoroughly unwatchable piece of crap. There is nothing to this movie. There is nothing positive I can say about it. The writing is some of the most juvenile I've ever seen. A lot of the times it's offensive just for the sake of being offensive. There are little to no actual punchlines, and even when there is a detectable punchline in there, it falls so flat and is telegraphed from so far away that it is impossible to laugh. This movie, more often than not, relies on the gross-out humor, which is the lowest form of comedy, like fart jokes and piss jokes and vagina jokes and penis jokes. But the thing is, even when it does resort to that kind of humor, there's no punchline, or at least no detectable punchline. So you're just left with these disgusting bodily functions that's with no humor surrounding them. There's another sketch where Chloe Moretz gets her period for the first time, and she leaves a blood stain on the couch. There's no joke or anything. The characters all just sit around. Wondering what to do, wondering what's going on. Some person sniffs the blood stain on the couch. Patrick Warburton comes in at one point, and out of nowhere, for no reason, he says, "Here, pull my finger, son." And sure enough, they go for a pull my finger joke. They go for a pull my finger joke without any kind of variation, without adding anything, without any kind of throwing the audience for a loop. That's one of the many jokes that plays out exactly as you would expect it to. Like it's the new biggest joke. But the thing is, these jokes are years old. This humor misses every single time. This is one of the most unpleasant movies I've ever seen. This is one of the most incompetent comedies I've ever seen. This thing apparently took years to make. This is a micro-budget movie. $6 million was spent on this thing, which is too much. That's not a lot in comparison to a lot of movies nowadays, but even so, $6 million is too much money spent on this when it could have been used for much better purposes, for much more noble purposes. This movie was filmed around the schedules of a lot of the actors in this movie, and that's really one of the things that got me really pissed off about this movie, is that all these talented actors are in here. This movie will forever tarnish their resume. Like Dennis Quaid, Hugh Jackman, Liev Schreiber, Naomi Watts, Richard Gere, Asif Manvi, Jason Sudeikis, the Kristen Bell, Terrence Howard. There are more. Will Sassa, Greg Kinnear, Patrick Warburton, Halle Berry, Stephen Merchant. I think that's his name. The guy from Portal. They got one of the kids from Shameless to play Liev Schreiber and Naomi Watts' son. All these guys and more, they are forever embarrassed. They will forever have this blemish on their resume. There's no going back. There is no blacking this out. There's no erasing their participation in this movie. I don't know what they were thinking being in here. I don't know what they were thinking. Did they even ask for a script? Did the Farrellies or the Farrellies, whatever, did they just sweet talk them into saying like, "Oh, you don't need a script, just read the lines. It'll be great in context." I know it hurts saying these lines when we're filming it, but when we actually edit it together, it'll be great. No, it's not great. It's stupid. It's idiotic. It's complete. I'm repeating myself at this point. This is. I can easily see why a lot of people have deemed this the worst movie they have ever seen. I can't fathom how anyone in their right mind would watch this, knowing what lies in store for them. I can't understand anyone willingly going to watch this. I can't understand the one of the Farrellys actually offered up a defense for this movie. They were like, "Back off. It's not. People are overreacting. It's not the worst movie. It's not the worst movie ever." I curse this movie to descend deep down into the fiery pits of hell. This movie, everyone involved with this movie should change their name to Alan Smithy. There is no creativity. There is no talent. Or no visible use of talent. There is no ambition. There's no comedic timing. There is no comedy. Why is this marketed as a comedy? There is no comedy. There are no laughs. There is no craftsmanship. There is absolutely nothing of value in this thing. There is nothing to be gained from watching it. They say film is a form of art. Not this. This. Not only is this the worst movie I have seen all year, this is one of the worst movies, like I said, that I have ever seen in my life. I curse the day I ever heard about it. I curse the day I paid money to see it. I don't know how I'm ever going to recover. This movie took up, I don't even know how long it was. It cannot have been longer than 100 minutes. It felt so much longer. This was practically unbearable to sit through. I cannot remember the last time I have so badly wanted to leave a theater. I just felt mortified to be in there. I just felt completely unfulfilled. It was a totally unfulfilling experience. I hated every second of this movie. Yeah, I'm done. I have nothing else.